Bubba built it.
Hey everybody, on this week's episode, we're going to talk about our touring wagon. And in full disclosure, I was not here for any of this, so I don't know exactly what we're going to be talking about, but Michael was here.
I was here, yeah. And Ronnie was here
And
too.
Ronnie's over there working away.
Okay, so any of you all that are familiar with the venerable M50 straight six dual overhead cam,
Awesome motor,
one of
bulletproof motor,
one
right?
of the best engines that BMW ever made. This engine just goes and goes and goes and requires very little of you in the way of maintenance other than oil changes. Between the bucket valve adjusters on the tips of the rockers that never have to be adjusted after that, to the cast iron block, to the whole architecture is just to the timing chain that's so reliable. These are 200,000 plus motors.
Oh, easy.
Bar none.
Very easy. I mean, that's without, really taking care of it.
Yeah,
I had one that went like 280,000 miles before I sold it and never gave me any issues.
I remember my first exposure to this engine, and this is back in '98. We had a friend, Rainey was his name, and he bought a 325i 4-door, and this was, I'd never seen one like this. It was a base model. You might remember the early E36s had the gray bumpers. It had the unpainted bumpers. It did have actual wheels, not hubcaps, but it had a cloth interior. And that's the only one I've ever seen that wasn't a European model that had a cloth interior. Anyway, that car at the time was like 6 years old, and it was one of the first production of the E36. And when he bought it, it had 320-something thousand miles on it, and he got it for pennies because it had so many miles on it. And he continued to drive that car for years and sold it to another guy, and he continued to drive it. I don't know how many miles it ended up having on it. But those cars, and I was just amazed. When I drove it at 300,000 miles when he bought it, he's like, what do you think? Should I buy this thing? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's see how it feels. And sure enough, it ran like a watch. And so, yeah. And I was like, these engines are awesome. And after that, I bought an E36. And then Lee got an E36. And we just started driving E36s for years.
Yeah, I love them.
Now, look, one of the things about the E36, a fun little side note, and this is a E34, of course, but same engine. But we would buy those E36s, and we would go buy an EEPROM chip to put in it to take off the speed limiter. And there, we'll just say a certain ribbon of asphalt near our house. It might be a racetrack, it might be whatever. We could get those things going 148 miles an hour.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
So we would take that EEPROM out, and we'd see just how fast can it go. And it would go 148 miles an hour, which at the time in the late 90s, it was like, this is awesome. These cars will do almost 150 miles an hour. Anyway, that's a little sidebar. They're just great cars. They're fun to drive, torqued for days. They keep pulling for days with the dual overhead cam architecture. Anyway.
And, well, bringing us back around to this one right here, and as you saw probably in one of our previous videos, a Will It Run video, we'd stored this thing for years, 7 years. And
yeah, shame
it's
on
not
us.
good.
I mean, it wasn't in the rain, at least.
It wasn't in the rain, but we let it sit for a while, and we got it out. We have some fuel pump issues, still chasing those down. But also, we knew from before we parked it that we had some cooling issues as well. And so I'm assuming that's what you guys are working on.
Yeah. So look,
radiator's gone, water pump's out.
We talked about the silver lining of the M50 motor, right? And there's a lot of great things to say. But one of the worst things about the M50 motor is the cooling system.
Oh, they're notorious.
And I've heard it said that the Germans designed this cooling system with a beautiful fall day in the mountains of Germany in mind.
An Alpine.
Right.
An Alpine as you're touring down the Autobahn.
A balmy 68 degrees Fahrenheit with breezes blowing in the wind. And they didn't really design it with a lot of heavy duty cooling in mind. Now, this one is no exception. To the credit of this car, we already had, okay, so there's two major Achilles heels with the M50. One is the plastic thermostat housing, which if you've had any exposure with these, you know about that. The second is the plastic impeller on the water pumps, which is known to just frag. Okay, this car had neither one of those problems. But, okay, look, so this is what we found when we took this thermostat It's
Ooh.
oh
Ooh.
yeah, that's really bad. And so that's and then this is I don't know, what did we do with the actual thermostat itself? There's a story to be told there, and we'll have some pictures that we can share about that. The first, we drove this car for a while, and then all of a sudden we are at Woodward Dream Cruise. And by the way, even though that is up in Detroit, it still does get hot there.
In the summertime, yeah.
It's still in it. Okay, at least we can't pry that sucker out. Thanks, Ronnie. All right, so it was over 100 degrees on the Dream Cruise. You know what, Lee? Might as well see if I can get this thing out. We need a light. Oh, there's a light right there.
Yeah. Probably plug it in right here.
Yeah. All right, so it was over 100 degrees, and
August.
in August, if you've ever been to the Dream Cruise, you stay here, and I'll go over there.
Yeah. I think I could probably get a shot of it.
And this thing started overheating, and so we pulled off in a Target parking lot, and
fortunately, it was actually a garage there.
Yeah, we had some shade.
Target, yeah.
This is not gonna end well. Anyway, this sucker's fused in here, but as you can see, there it goes. It has no guts.
Yep.
All right. So this is some of our handiwork in the Target parking lot at Woodward Dream Cruise, and we gutted the thermostat, and we finished the Dream Cruise and made it home. Okay, and so we're like, oh, the poor E34 Touring needs some cooling system attention. But anyway, that's a little trick. If you're ever stranded, you don't have a thermostat, just gut the thing, and it'll get you home.
Need some pliers and a blowtorch
and a roll of duct tape.
Yeah.
So it'll get you home. But anyway, that's why that's like that. And so yeah, it got us home, and we drove it around a couple of days after that, and then it started still getting warm on us. So we're like, okay, we need to park this thing. We parked it for a couple of months. We cranked it up again. Then it started idling funny, where it wasn't wanting to idle. And that's when we figured that probably the fuel pump went out. So it's one of those cascading. If any of you own cars, you know that a few things go wrong. And then we parked it, put it into this shed, and we'll get back to it. And 6 years later, here we are.
7.
Let's just say 6. I don't think it was 7. 7. All right. Well, look, what does it say? It says 2014 SEMA Rally.
Mm-hmm.
And then we drove it after that
a
couple years. That's 2016. How long ago was 2016?
7 years ago now, for sure.
Okay. So yeah, we're in this. Okay. So we were like, let's go ahead and start rehabbing this cooling system. Let's just do the whole thing, because if we're going to continue to drive this car, and so then we take it apart. And as you can see, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And some of this is from sitting the length of time that it sat, but also by the color of the water on the ground there too. Yeah. That's anyway. So the other thing that we noticed, we took it apart, is this. And I'm like, Ronnie, why did you beat up the end of the impeller when you pulled this out?
I was wondering the same thing when I came back here. I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, they must have had a really tough time getting this thing out.
He's like, no, I pulled it out just like it should have been. And this is just what so something aberrant was in there.
Something
at some
bad.
point.
It didn't like it.
So we got another, it's not happy. So we got to, and you know what? Ronnie first thought that this part had come loose and gone to the cooling system and but that's not what happened.
No.
But maybe a piece of this did.
It probably did. That makes sense.
I bet
something was left behind.
The reason that we put this back in there is because of that rubber seal right there. And
you need that.
It needs that. So, but we gutted this thing. Maybe we left something. I don't know.
Left behind.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it started getting warm again on us.
I bet you're right.
Okay. But anyway, so
took the radiator out.
Now the next thing that's a real problem on any car really that's modern these days that still has this kind of fan. By the way, we did not beat the motor with a hammer, but we did need the hammer to do this job. All right, so if you look at this right here, this is the thing right here. This goes right there on the end of the water pump, right? And by the way, on an M50 motor, this is reverse. I'm sitting here telling you that it's reverse threaded, and I'm putting it on the wrong way. It's reverse threaded. So see it counterclockwise.
Those
goes
wacky
on there. Those
Germans.
wacky Germans, because that way it doesn't loosen as it runs. Okay. If you ever come across one of these, and in my younger mechanic days, I was always like killing myself trying to take a fan lug off because it's a big lug. It's like a 1 1/8, I think, is what the wrench size is. And so the best thing you're going to have is if you have the belt still on there, you got belt tension, but that's not a lot, okay? And then if you've already taken it apart, like for instance, when we did this, the belt was already off. So then this is still sitting there. You got to get this off. And this is a, a good friend of ours, John Alexander, who was a mechanic for many years and continues to do that kind of work, but also a fabricator. He taught me this trick. I was sitting there struggling with the 50 HO fan on the front of the wagon, and I'm like, I can't get it. And he's like, get back. And because like we're sitting there struggling with it, right? And he comes up to it, and the wrench was already on it, right? So here it is like that. The wrench was already on it. Man, where is that wrench? What do I do with that wrench?
Is this it? This is it.
Yeah. So the wrench was already on it, and he goes, get back. Because I'm like, it really is hard to hold it from turning. And he went, kabrink, kabrink, kabrink. And it just rolled. It just took him right off. So all he did was hit the end of the wrench.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that they don't put these on they're only just tension tightened on there. And so anytime you come across this, you give it a whack with a good sized hammer. And what it does is it basically just breaks that tension, almost like a couple of whacks with a impact wrench.
Yeah.
And like magic, it just
comes right
right. So that's a little trick that you can employ. It especially works better when the belt's on it because you still need some kind of tension on it. What I did was I took and put a wrench on it and whacked it with the hammer, a small wrench on the bolts. But anyway, that's another little trick. And another trick that we found was these retainers that hold the radiator on. They clip right on here like this, and all you got to do is you stick a screwdriver into the top of this. Let me grab one right here. Because a bunch of cars we've had in the years didn't have these anymore because people probably just break them off.
Yeah.
But they go like that. And if you take the screwdriver and put it in right here and you just pry it back, it releases it. And that's how we got that off. Anyway, the radiator's out, cooling system's taken apart, and we're going to clean this up because it is not a plastic housing. Right. That's the other thing I was talking about. Yeah. This one has already been upgraded, but so we got to flush this thing. We're going to put the new radiator that is right here. Oh, no, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, then the new radiator is right there, and ours is a stick shift, so we're not going to use these.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that we don't use those. That's not an oil cooler. That's a...
No, this should be a transcooler.
Yeah, it's a transcooler, so we don't need that. Now, the next thing that we had to do...
Alternator.
Now,
the alternator was making an awful noise and stupid hot.
Yeah, like really hot. Now... And by the way, this alternator probably has 200,000 miles on it, so it'd be forgiven for giving up the ghost. But Ronnie helped us by pulling off this stuff, and I already had the alternator, and he's like, "Look, we got a problem. This alternator here, this bolt, this is just sitting on here, right, Ronnie? All right, let me get this off." So there was a different lug. A lot of times when you go to put something like a water pump,
too small.
Man, it's so close.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I can see it.
What is that?
This is
15.
it. This is gonna be it.
Yeah. Right. So a lot of times when you're dealing with alternators and water pumps and things like that, or power steering pumps, you're having to deal with different pulleys and things like that, details that are wrong. And this one happened to be one of those problems. And I'm going to show it to you right now. So Ronnie brings it to me. He's like, I don't think this is going to work. We're going to have to do something different. And the problem that we ran into was everything here that you can see is fine. It's just identical to the other one. But is it bolted down here too, Ronnie, or not? Just the top, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's just the bottom. All right, it's just being a bit of a pain. All right, here we go. Now, And we had to figure this out. And if you do this, you're probably going to run into the same problem. Oh, it's already wired up. All right, well, look, I'll just show it here. You see that right there? That is a threaded, it is a threaded bung that goes through that, okay? And it needs that because this bolt is just long enough to go through that retainer shoulder into that, and that's how it holds itself in place. When this new alternator came to us, it had this in there. Now, God Almighty only knows what application this is required for, but it's just a slip through bung, right? So we took that one and we set it up here, the new alternator, just like so. Ronnie held it and I hammered on it. And you're going to notice that something's missing. So once again, if we can help you avoid some of these pitfalls. On the new alternator, it was just like this, only this thing was in here. And shame on us for not getting pictures, but while we were doing this,
I wasn't here.
Lee wasn't here, so we were just doing what we could, and we were going to share that with you. Okay, so it was like this, and it was in the new one, right? And I said already, and this is the new alternator, and I'm like, well, we didn't have our heat gun working, so I said what we'll do is we've got this thing supported, so we're not putting pressure on the tab by itself, and we'll hammer this thing out, and I'll just tap on it because I don't want to mess up the new alternator. And I did, and it tapped right out. So because of that, and I think it's because of that collet, that relief in the collet there, that allowed it to just tap right out. So I took a hammer and we tapped it right out. Then it came to this one that had the bung, the threaded bung in it, right? So we get it up here, and it is a lot more stubborn. And so what we did was, because it actually had a hex in on it, we took the impact and spun it a few times. And you might even be able to see the evidence of us spinning it in there. So we broke it loose, and we're like, okay, now we're going to tap it out. And it was not tapping. Like tap, 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 tap. And I was thinking, this alternator was still charging. It's still got some value to it. So I didn't want to tear it up, but we're tapping a little harder. And we didn't realize the next tap, it went, and because there's very little aluminum holding this thing. Well, this very thin ridge of aluminum here, and then here and here. So, yeah, we tapped it right off of there. But then it was still in there. So now we're like, well, it's ruined now. So we just took the cutoff wheel and I just cut it here and cut it here, and we got the bung out.
Cool.
And then another little trick.
So I guess you had to perform surgery there. I mean, that's.
Yeah, well, once I cut that off, where's the piece of it? Anyway, once I cut that off, it was not hard to get it out.
Right.
But it was fairly corroded. So we took it and chucked it up into the drill here. And I took this piece of sandpaper right here, and we chucked it up in there and cleaned it up, tapped it right back in there. And so that solved that problem. But
I hate I missed all this.
Yeah, you've still quite a bit of stuff there. Anyway, so the next step for this car is to chase down the remainder of the water, the fuel pump issue.
Yeah, which is probably, we're thinking we just probably came disconnected.
Well, we put it back in the tank. It was kind of the way we had to hook it up.
Yeah.
So we got to just run that down and fix the cooling system. We've got spark plugs right here. And so we're going to go ahead, I think, and replace the coil packs and boots.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to get, we thought we had ordered a water pump, but apparently, I think we did order a water pump and they sent us a power steering pump.
Yeah, so I don't know. Do you guys know what power steering pump this goes on? Because this is not what we need. I don't know.
No.
I'm guessing it's an E36 though. You know what? We should look at it.
Yeah. No, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Obviously not a lot to do, just getting it done. So
yeah. So
amongst everything else going on.
But we tag teamed on this, try to move the ball, and I don't know, we've got quite a ways.
Yeah.
Again, this thing when we quit driving it, it didn't use any oil to speak of. It doesn't leak any oil. Everything works on it.
Yeah.
So it's just like we need to start driving this car again. So that's what this is all about. And so as we continue to move the ball forward with this project, we will just keep you guys posted on it.
Keep you posted. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching.